voices almost lost meaning. The phonemes dissolved into meaningless snatches of imagined sound. Rare. Something dismissive. Something half-formed. Venge. Something ugly. Something almost perverse. Almost sordid. Thrown together in a careless coin flip, ordering of 2 syllables. Revenge. Just noise. Useless noise. Revenge. Millennia of human culture and evolution had reworked those phonemes into syllables, had crudely bolted them together into something empowered with artificial meaning. Perhaps millennia more had passed. He could sense the passage of time. Distant, unimportant. Sand in an hourglass. Each grain of sand had mattered once, but now they flowed into the pile. Revenge. Years at first. Decades. Centuries. Millennia. Perhaps that endless time had degenerated these 2 syllables back to phonemes, deconstructing their meaning into empty noise. Like waves lapping at a cliff face. The word might have eroded. Shifts of pronunciation bending it to a new tune. The connotations associated with these random noises mutating. Mutating. Subtle at first, but with greater and greater speed, until those mutations had become cancers, and the meaning had died. Revenge. Now, perhaps new sounds spoke to the distant, half-grasped meaning behind those rotten syllables. New words warped and created to give voice to the emotion held in its half-decayed husk. Dim cognitions idly wondered what those sounds would be, tried to guess at the manipulations of time. The shifts in Gothic. The shifts in time. The shifts in Gothic. Revenge. He kept coming back to that word. All of the cognitions, all of the diseased thoughts of his living carcass, repeating like a metronome, ticking endlessly into the long nights of the soul, repeating until it bore no meaning, until the silent noise detached from what he felt. The burning, consuming hatred that had long since silenced the need for words or phenome noise. Revenge. Rusted wires formed a crown of thorns about his flesh-stripped skull. His brain meat sparked on failing subsystems and the laughter of thirsting gods. Sputtering, photon energy sustained him. The battery, a totemic mockery of everything he was and everything he had been. A warped, mangled thing that screamed in silence for the gift of sound. A warped, mangled sonic weapon that had screamed off his leg and inverted his metal on his left side. A tool of excruciation to fuel a tortured corpse. A silent instrument of hate, keening into the darkness for its one obsession. Revenge. Like this, he had been sustained. Like this, and with the force of his monstrous hate to spare, the corruption was a canker on his soul, a blotch of rotted black within a conflagration of burning white. If not for that hate, that fierce, binding white that had consumed his essence, the rotted black would have overtaken him, warping him, corrupting him, transforming him into everything he had despised. A perfection of purpose, contaminated by a lurid lure of grinning necessity. Sometimes, in those fits of wakefulness marked by his own screams, he felt dark gods competing for his soul. Rage against desire, hate against obsession. Sometimes, in those rare moments of strained lucidity, he wondered what it all meant. Sometimes, in those briefest flashes of sanity, he remembered that there were no gods. Revenge. He was something less than he had been, and yet, something more. Something sustained that should not have been sustained. Something not quite human, nor transhuman, nor carcass, nor transhuman carcass in an adamantium sarcophagus. He had been distilled into a single concept, a metal shell, wrapped around a bomb of such proportions that might destroy an entire world. A backup for an overkill, to kill that which was already dead. The eater of life, that ravenous virus that had transformed human meat to combustible gas, that had transformed human screams to bubbling silence. He had seen his brothers consumed by that devourer, had heard their screams strangle out their viral teeth. And then, the fire that had burned all that could not be consumed. The fire that had gorged on those ragged scraps of an eaten world. A flicker tape reel of contextless memories. Faces blurring into shades of ghost. Names fluttering to ethereal nothing. One by one by one. Some of the memories didn't seem to belong to him. Memories of a man with arms and legs and 2 beating hearts. The black smog of the Roma falling from the burning skies. The mushroom clouds that blossomed as they struck the barren ground. The atomic devastation reflected in the eyes of that memory self. The annihilation of Thule and its endless, dead-eyed gen butchers, walls collapsing into crashing waves of dust. An emperor, the banner of a lightning-crossed eagle, fluttering in death-scented winds. Time, falling, trickling time, measured through half-moment snapshots. Words mutating, banners mutating. The Aquila had grown ahead, looking both forwards and back. He had held its flag aloft on 100 worlds. Its shadow had draped a Primarch, and it had been beautiful. Genetically manipulated adoration, the sun-kissed warmth of soulful eyes. Father, Phoenician, Primarch, traitor, idolater, monster, monster, monster. Shuriken shards had filled the air with razed death, crashing against bolt rounds that exploded across a purple sky. He had fought the blade masters that had forever screamed, and matched their rapid cuts with the clash of steel. He remembered pain blossoming across his chest, the half-bifurcation of his body, the smell of his own burning flesh, the stuttering beats of his failing heart, the shallow breaths of one remaining lung. Even as he fell, he kept the standard aloft, planting it in alien ground, slumping against its blade-scored shaft. That pain felt unreal now, like it had happened to someone else. A dream belonging to a ghost half forgotten. He remembered a warship, weighing anchor in orbital waters, above a world now infamous. He did not remember the vessel's name, but he knew it was important. Knew it was something that mattered, had mattered, did matter. He remembered a captain, a half-imagined face, a dead man's face, a hero's face. Death, 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 on both a cosmic and personal scale, as intimate as a blade twisting between ribs, as anonymous as an atomic exploding across a cityscape. He would grow agitated at these memories. His fists would make new corpses of his brothers. Bullets ripping apart his brothers even as they shrieked in both agony and ecstasy. He had not understood. He did not understand. Maybe it had all been a dream. Maybe he was falling into death. And everything he remembered was the imagined false starts of a rotting brain. There had been internment in a coffin of limbs. Broken nerve endings spun around like sparking wires. There had been sight without eyes, sound without ears, perceptions rattling around a cracked skull and the struggling cognition of stasis flesh. More time, always time, trickling on and on and on. The weight of years pressing on adamantium shoulders, already ancient in a time of myth. He had witnessed allegiance decay in flashes between sleeps, offered the perspective of abrupt, discrete snapshots, able to see the madness taking hold. The music, the screaming, the revels, the screaming. He had belonged to something he no longer knew the name of, a legion whose name had once been an honor and now was a sordid joke. He remembered the number 3, 3 slashes forming a designation that still scratched into his armor. But what they designated, what they denoted, he could not remember. The purple of his blade was chipped away to ugly patches of brutalist gray, gold trimmings flaking to rusted orange-brown. He had a sense that he was a husk, that he was something forgotten. But he was the last witness, and he could not remember. That metronome tick, that empty short progression of sound and syllable, all was constant in the strangled, broken rhythm of his mind. The word bounced about his essence, floating above it, dislodging from the emotion that had eaten him through, as surely as the life eater. That feeling which even now drove him to stir and clench his fist and bellow wordless noises at a long-collapsed sky. Decibels shaking through the hollowed-out metal. For hours, he would scream his rage at the echoes of his own fury, until sputtering thoughts warned of structural collapse and he fell silent, nursing his hatred to his metal chest. He didn't remember who or what he was waiting for. Instinctively, he would recognize the object of those empty millennia, the purpose of his half-life consciousness, even if by then the stars had fallen black and there was nothing but darkness across the nothingless cosmos. He would recognize that thing, that creature, even if it no longer had a name, even if it no longer had blood or a soul or anything that had once been his. He cleaved to those syllables, straining to make sense of the noise that had stayed with him for those thousands of generations. Its noise was its name. He knew that much. A name he remembered, the only name he remembered. Sometimes he wondered if it had been his brother, if it had been his father, if it had been him. Was it his name? In some sense, he knew that it was. He tried to remember what the syllables meant, how it all connected to that fury that itched through broken nerve waves and splayed his fist to the broken sky. Whether that word corresponded in some way to that which had consumed him, that thing he had inhaled into non-existent lungs and became. It was his name, and it was the name of the desire, and the desire was him. He hated how it felt inside him. All his energy fueling a fire that could only burn within his own grave. That furious, directionless agitation that he could never release, that endlessly waited, a frustrated mechanical function stalling between input and output. A delayed, unexpressed directive that could do nothing but mark time, churning uselessly in a rotted stomach, bouncing about his skeleton like an itch he could never scratch. A special form of torture crafted for him and him alone. The itch became agony, alighting every moment of his unraveling unlife. And, all the while, the slow bleeding of corruption from the torture instrument, the fuel source, the sonic monstrosity that he had bolted into his body decades, centuries, millennia before. He could feel its sickly, screaming silence infusing the metal of his coffin, a retching, nauseous, addicting yearning that whispered false truths and undeniable lies into his poisoned perception. Each pulse of that diseased instrument was like compression and decompression of a mutant lung, muttering in words that no longer made sense. More words that had collapsed through repetition into semantic goo. The ancient awaits. 5 syllables. The ancient awaits. Phonemes. Noise. just noise. It all had to connect together. He had that instinct, but he couldn't remember how.
Revenge!
He knew it was all connected. He knew it would all make sense. But he did not know how he knew. He possessed only the certainty of the lost and the damned, cleaving to the truth of his madness, waiting for something or someone that would somehow, eventually appear. Then, he would send all that energy within him to the device beneath his corpse, to the bomb that would devour what was left of him, and finally end the torment and pain of 10,000 years. He waited for that moment, hoped for that moment, begged for that moment, and then he would scream. Scream until he remembered that his angry roars could bury him, and he fell silent once more. He wondered if he would return to himself in those last moments, if he would remember his name, if he would remember the faces of his brothers, if he would remember the face of his father, if he would remember the construction of words enough for one last formation of spoken cognition, if he would remember the purpose to which he had devoted his life, to which he had devoted his unlife, and now, his undeath. In those scattered, distancing moments between inconsolable, inexpressible rage, he hoped that everything would finally make sense. He hoped he would remember who he was. And he hoped he would remember what had come before, something that could make sense out of the senselessness of his hate. That he would remember the why that had birthed this other thing. He hoped that he would understand it all. That he would be able to set things in order one last time. Or maybe for the first time. Just once in an eternity of wordless screaming and broken ruins and splaying fists. That he would understand the nature of what he was. What these contextless memories were. And the secret purpose that had underpinned everything all along.
Revenge!
But then the metronome ticker noise would return. And the diseased weapon organ would pulse its wheezing nonsense, and the murderous, all-consuming, self-defeating rage would take him. He would be seized by it, snatched by it, possessed by it, centuries at a time, a berserker's anger that bounced about the sarcophagus and pushed outward on his skull into phantom headaches. Centuries of unbroken madness, weeping, screaming, roaring madness. A straitjacket of adamantium, the feeling of being buried alive, 10,000 years. 10,000 years.
Revenge!
And he had to get out. It had to stop. He had to get out. Those moments of lucidity, rarer and rarer, worse and worse, more and more painful. The rage still lingered. The poison still lingered. The nonsense phenoms. Get out! Get out! Get out!
Revenge!
But there was no escape. No escape from this tomb. No escape from this ruin. From this hangar. From this corpse of a world. From the pain and the noise. From the galaxy. No escape. No escape. No escape.
Revenge!
For the feeling had wormed. Parasitical. And his remains had rotted around it. And now he was the parasite's worm, something that did not make sense. Was he the object? Was he the thing that he was meant to kill? He did not know his name. He did not know where he was, how he was.
Revenge!
In those moments, those mad panics disguising themselves as fractured lucidity, he would consider self-annihilation. Some part of him still remembered that he could. That the thing beneath him would eat what was left, would end it all, and ending, and ending, and ending.
Revenge!
But then he would remember that he had to exist, that he had to endure. The moment would come, one perfect moment of apotheosis. Something or someone was deserving of this, of all of it. They had earned this pain and despair and this hatred, this burning hatred.
Revenge!
He had to make things right. even though he didn't know what was wrong other than everything forever. He couldn't remember what monstrous deed had been done to him. He couldn't remember who had been wronged, what had been wronged, what might have happened, even though he remembered so many half-formed things. The Life Eater, fire, the blades, the bodies, the blood, the deaths, his multiple deaths, the third and last. It was coming. It was coming. He knew it in his bones. Those bones that only barely existed, that had become empty, marrowless skeletons of skeletons, hollowed out, emptied out. He knew that the day would come, or maybe he simply had to know it. Maybe it was all a lie, like all those silken truths that the sonic origin screeched in what was left of his mind. Something that had infiltrated and taken hold, but he would cling to it. His lodestar, that was at once his salvation and his torment.
Revenge!
The day would come, and soon, when the galaxy bled fire, and the cosmos ripped asunder for the final time, all these millennia of unending, useless war would reach a small crescendo in this bleached, forgotten place. This world that had once borne a poisoned name, and now was less than nothing. When he would arrive before him, the object of his hate, the object of it all, that thing that might be a person, that might be him, it would reveal itself and he would recognize it for what it was. An end. An end. An end.
Revenge!
And those nonsense syllables would bleed out to nothing. And the ticking clock of unraveled nonsense time would break. And the screaming nonsense whisper of the battery disease would fade, and with it the pain, the madness, the half-memory that was worse than forgetting. All of it over, all of it gone, and he would sleep. Not in the fitful half-sleep of those uneasy, corrupted slumbers, but the real sleep that would come only with the finality of long-awaited death. And all the burning feeling that immolated and shriveled away the nerve endings of his soul would extinguish in one great explosion of suffocated smoke and viral dust. He would finally be released of it. Please, please, please. But until then, he would wait and listen. Listen to those loosely arranged phenoms. Those mutant, conjoined syllables, repeating again and again and again.
Revenge!
Thank you for listening to this video from the Archive Tower. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe to the channel.